Okay. Yep. So, okay. So we'll be starting really shortly. Yep. Oh, okay. So we'll be starting now. Welcome to the React workshop. My name is Brian. And this is Giang, and we'll be hosting the workshop for you all today. So today we'll be learning one of the most popular front-end frameworks, which is React. And one of the primary aspects of a full stack application is the front end. And as well as React, we'll also be learning some UI UX, and we'll get a quick refresher on some HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript. Mostly just the things that you all have to just like some background information to get comfortable with React. Yeah. Okay. So what we learned today exactly? Well, we'll start with some UI UX, which is the user interface or user experience design. And then we'll get a quick refresher of some HTML and CSS. And then we'll do a short intro of JavaScript. We won't be covering everything from JavaScript, just like the main basics that you'll need to use when you're coding in React. And then we'll move on to like the main thing, which is React. We'll talk about some things about components, some dynamic rendering, and hooks. Right now, you don't need to know what all those things mean right now, but we'll be explaining them later on and how you'll use this to create a project. And most importantly, like I said just now, you'll be creating something with Giang. You'll be creating a very basic resume site. Something that you can use to display all your projects, your experience, everything like that. So before we get into any code, we'll get into UI UX. So these terms are kind of abstract. So what do they mean exactly? Well, UX, it stands for user experience. It's all aspects of the end user interactions with the service or product. So that basically just means like the entire experience a user goes through with a product. It doesn't have to be a website. It can be like even just experiencing just opening a door or something. That's also user experience. And then there's the user interface, which is the look, feel, and interactivity of an experience. So that's basically just what you see and what you feel. So in terms of websites, it's like the aesthetics of a website, kind of. That's the UI part of the UI UX process. So a product will usually always begin with the UI UX design. This is basically just like the brainstorming or conceptualization of the product and what kind of things the user wants. So in this process, in general, you'll need to consider the user needs and wants. And that means like what the user wants and needs from the product. So the main purpose of this is to make it so when you're designing a product, it's only designed with the user in mind and what exactly they want. Meaning you'll keep out any features that they probably don't want or like will never use or things like that. And part of this UI UX process is also composing layouts and prototypes, which I'll discuss in the next slide. This often involves maybe like a brainstorming process, sort of conducting some research, some observations, and also creating things like wireframes. And this is all things before, in terms of front end, actually creating your code. And the UI UX process, at least the mockup phase, this often requires like fundamental design skills. These are things that we won't cover in this workshop. It's mostly just things like graphic design, just knowing what works, like color theory, all of these things, which you can learn through a plethora of other resources. And the main thing is that a bad user experience is extremely noticeable. And a good user experience is something that will allow a user to seamlessly navigate through with confidence. And it's something that you don't really notice that much. So we'll elaborate more on wireframing because it's very important for front-end development. So basically, the wireframing is a crucial part of the UI UX process of front-end design. And this process can often be thought of as the prototyping stage of your front-end code. And this often involves creating a mockup, which is either in low fidelity or high fidelity. So you'll usually first begin with the low fidelity mockup, which is usually used to create the layout of the design. This won't include anything like fonts or colors or any big colors. This is just only to create the layout. And as you can see in the picture, the left side image is the low fidelity prototype. So you can see the font is like something like Comic Sans, something that so you can just ignore what the font is, and the buttons are pretty incomplete. This is all just to show the layout and just to test if this layout is appealing and if it works correctly. And later on, after the low fidelity mockup was finished, you'll move to high fidelity. And this high fidelity will include color, font. It's basically what the actual final product will look like after you finish coding it. And you often create these mockups through things like Figma or Adobe XD or things like that. And a wireframe should always be made before writing any framework front-end code, because it lets you organize everything that you want to create with React, which also makes everything much easier when you code your actual product. So this is a really short exercise. Basically, one of these is good UI UX and one of these is bad UI UX. So so which one does everyone think is the good one, and then which one does everyone think is the bad one? The new one. Yeah. So
I feel like it's me. I would say both is good. I don't know.
Yeah. So basically, as we can see, yeah. So yeah. So I'll continue now. So basically, the left side one is the bad one, and then the right side one is the good one. And while like the layout itself might look good, the user experience is terrible on the left one. If you look closely, for example, at the top it says it might want you to write your password, which is pretty unintuitive. Usually, intuitively you think that you write your username there. There's also the timer there. This is just a short GIF of it, but it keeps counting up, which adds pressure, as well as the flashing buttons, which sort of removes the focus of the user. And then you can see the short checkbox says, I do not accept the terms and conditions. This is also something that is sort of unintuitive as well as the big button that says cancel instead of confirm. So you can see that even though something may look good, the user experience might be bad because it goes against what you intuitively think, which adds a lot of user frustration, which is often something you'll have to consider. And this is basically everything of the UX portion of this workshop. And Giang will take over for a short HTML CSS debriefer, as well as an intro to JavaScript.
Okay, so thank you, Brian, for your presentation for the UI UX. And now we will actually talk about HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So this there are technologies that usually like web development, like people usually use when they are doing the website. And this like very super basic things that it can be easily used and easily learned. So that's why like many people are using it. Yes, and first we will start with HTML. So what is HTML? HTML is a standard markup language, which means you have a document and you have some rules. As you can see here, you have some like tags like title, link, body, etc. So as like rules that like keep your document structure. So that is what like abstract meaning of it, like markup language, and HTML is like one type of it. And if you can see here, the HTML document we have the head tags, the link tags, the title, body, div, h1, image, and so on. They are tags. They are elements for your HTML document. And this, if you can imagine this document as a tree. So your tree has the parent is like a head tag, super big tag here, and inside of that, each children has the title tag and the link tag. And yeah, you can modeling this HTML document as a tree, and we usually call it as a DOM tree. So we will for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because we don't have enough time to like cover everything, so we just like briefly mention what it means, and like we are trying to relate it to what you want, what you already know. For example, like in Python in one way, but we will get there. For the CSS is a technology that we use to style HTML, because if only you use HTML, it's just some text there and it's not pretty. So that's why we want to use CSS. And in this example, CSS document consists of selectors. So here we select the class container and we style it to have the width of 200 pixels, and so on. We select the ID workshop box and we style it with some like font style, border, padding, and so on. And if we compile the code from the HTML example here and the CSS example here, we will get a really cute cat as a result. Yeah. So that is the so this is for HTML and CSS. Now we are going to JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language, and it is widely used in web development. The reason why, because most of your web browsers are containing the environment that can be easily compiled or integrate the JavaScript code. So that's why JavaScript is widely used, and you have like many frameworks, libraries to support JavaScript. And we will cover very basic JavaScript here to help you understand the React. So first we go to variables. If you know Python, I hope you still remember it from CSSC 101. When you define variables, you need a variable names, which is num1, num2, and num3, and you assign it to a value 1, 2, 3. However, in what is different from Python is in JavaScript, you have like a keyword to define this is a variable. So if you have like var is a data that can be like mutable. It means like you can like change its value to like a string, an object, an array. It means, yeah, you can like change its value. You can assign it to another value. That is var. The same thing with let, but let is different than var is because it's scoped in only a block. You can like find more difference about var and let from Google. And with cons is immutable, which means if you assign the num3 to the integer 3, you cannot like assign it to anything else. It must stay a 3. And the next thing we want to talk about is the data type. So the data in JavaScript, unlike Java, C++, or C, it's not strongly typed. It means if you are using let and assign the value of 16 to the length, you can easily like assign a string, boolean, object, whatever to this variable, and there is no a variable can have like can be assigned with different data type. And in JavaScript, you have integer, string, booleans, object, and array. There are still some more data types, but this is like very basic one that you can find in JavaScript program. The next is the function. Function is like it's a piece of code. We wrap it into a function, and as the name say like tells, it helps you to like achieving a goal, maybe like multiplying two integers, returning a string, whatever. It's executed when you call the function. And in JavaScript, you have two ways to write a function. You can define a keyword function and write your function name, parameters, and the body, or you can define a function with the constant and this an arrow with the parameters, arrow, and to the function body. There is a difference between arrow function and normal function. It's used keyword this, but we are if you are interested to knowing more about difference between arrow function and normal function, you are welcome to look it up. But normally, we usually use the arrow function for like functions inside the class for React, and I usually like personally I use the normal function to define like components, and we will talk about it in a bit. So, like I think we are like good enough with HTML, JavaScript, and CS. Like, why do we need JSX? So, if you want to modify your HTML page, you need to like either you have to delete or like add HTML components, tags, element manually, or you need to use some external libraries like jQuery to like modify the DOM tree. And it's kind of like tedious and like it takes a lot of times. But now we have JavaScript, JSX with React. So JSX is a syntax extension of JavaScript, and you can write HTML elements in JavaScript. And as you can see here, we have JavaScript code as name. We assign the value Giang to the variable names, and we can actually have an element, HTML element that is equal to the heading 1 tag with this name and the string hello. Yeah, so that is a very basic of HTML, JavaScript, and CS. So anyone have any questions, or do you want to ask anything about it, or you are good and we can move into React? Yeah, feel free to ask us any questions. We are really happy to answer it. Yeah.
Can you go back to the arrow function page?
Yes.
Okay. So is it possible for you to like maybe do like show like a live like demonstration of the arrow function or something like sorry, not live demonstration, like you write out like a function using like the normal syntax and using the arrow syntax, like the same one?
That's actually the same code. Yeah, as I said, the main difference should be between when you using object and using keyword this, but like usually we are not. I think like normal practice now, they are not using class in JavaScript. Like that's not common, so I think that's why like for now I think it's not actually the same code. If you call the function hello, it should return hello world, and if you write it as a normal function, it also returns the hello world. Same thing. Yeah, just syntax different.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we will have like more practice when we go to React. You will actually build a website on your own in the React part. But any other questions before we can move on? No, yeah, I think so. Now, Brian will take turn will introduce you to the React and React components. Okay.
Yep. Okay, so now we'll be learning some basic React, the main thing of this workshop. So first, before we actually learn about React, before we actually learn about React, we'll have to learn what exactly is React. So React is a JavaScript framework created by Meta. And it allows devs to quickly build user-friendly web apps with a modular infrastructure. And as we code with Giang, you can see that while being exposed to a framework for the first time may be daunting, React is actually quite an easy framework to use, and you'll learn how convenient and just intuitive it is. And that's why currently React is the most popular JavaScript framework. And for most things using JavaScript, it uses React as well. So why use React though? Well, you can easily organize your code into reusable components. So this reduces duplicating code and also just making your code more readable in general. And also with React, you can often dynamically render websites. So that means without refreshing the page, you can update data on the page very conveniently. And due to just how I mentioned earlier, how React is the most popular JavaScript framework, there's a lot of community support. There's a lot of things that it's just a Google away. Like you can just Google search. If you ever have a problem with any React code, there's probably a YouTube tutorial anywhere, or maybe something like on like Stack Overflow or something. Anything that could like just quickly solve your problem, it's there just due to the popularity of React. So as we begin with very basic React, we'll have to first learn about what a component is. Well, a component is a JavaScript class or function, and this returns a React element. And when creating a React component, keep reusability in mind. Remember how in the past slide, it was mentioned that you can easily organize your code into reusable components. Well, these components, as I just said, you can reuse them. So you have to keep this in mind while you're coding to always keep reusability in mind. So you're always just reusing something instead of just copy pasting the same thing that could easily be made into another function or something like that. So to go more into detail about components, a component in general can be rendered in two ways, with or without children. So what it means to have a child or not to have a child, with children, it generally means you have the opening and the ending, and then you can see in the example, there's a button, there's a login in the middle, and then the button, the slash button. And in this case, the login is the child. And without children, you can see the example is the nav bar, where it's just that, and it doesn't have a child with it. And as you can see in the code, this is a more practical example where it's actually implemented, where there's a function for the for the nav bar. Oh, yep. And for a short aside, we'll be beginning coding with Giang. She'll be asking you all to add your name to the intro component of the.
Oh, yes. So yesterday night, we sent you an email that is with some starter code, but I know that some of you may not check your email or there's some kind of error. So we will sending the starter code again here and the link in the chat, or the link is when you go to the CSSC GitHub organization, you should see, you should see the front-end bookshop there. Yeah, so you should see that is your starter code. There's a React website template that we modify, and we want you to, there's some to-dos that we want you to practice here. So, and that there is also like setup instruction here. So before we start, I know that this may take some time for you to like set it up. So if you have not set up it yet, I think we can take like 5 minutes for you to set it up. And if you need like any help or any question, feel free to like raise your hand and we will help you. Yeah, and this is the Yes, so after you download it, so if you follow the instruction here, you need to like clone this repo and then go to the directory, install some dependency and start. And once you get the website start at localhost, then you can open like Visual Studio Code or whatever IDE you use, and we will help you to like complete this website. But if you get this running, then it should be good.
Sorry, you do need to. Yeah, short and I don't know if
They're signed over my card. They're signed over my card. Can you return? When you leave? Like, you know the, yeah, you know the box where you return books? Just throw it in there.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, sorry, your mom.
Everyone in this room seems okay. So, oh, yeah. There's like an app on Mac called
Yeah,
and then after that, also this one. So just for learning this
We want to
Person over there just took it.
Yeah, so for everyone, if you done with your like setup, you should see a website like the website I'm seeing on the left is a template website, as you said, as I said, for your like resume website, and yeah, feel free to reuse it. But there's like a lot of missing components here, and we will like resolve all the to-dos to like complete it. So now I am having a component called introduction. And this component is what you're seeing on the left is with the hello and with the I am like kind of introduction. And if you want to see like how it looks like if I replace the to-do with my name, for example, this. And when you go to the left, it should render what you write, what you have on the component, this component called introduction, and you can find it from source, components, and then intro. And go to index.js. Yeah, and whatever you can find. For example, I will use like Brian name here. So if I change it to Brian name, you should see the change reflected to the change in the component reflected to the website. Yeah, so that is our first to do. And yeah, if you have any question, like in the meantime, when we are doing practice, feel free to raise your hand and we will help you. Yeah, and now we are going back to the presentation.
All right, so we'll cover more about components here. When creating a component, you can reuse it inside another component. When you write code in between tags, it's exposed to a component called children. So as you can see here, we have the heading text. Essentially what we're doing here in heading text is that we're replacing props.children with dialogue. So you can see in line, so we can basically see that the text in line 14 is getting replaced into the line 4, where when you run this, it'll display dialogue rather than just props.children. And as like a more practical example, Giang can quickly cover how to create your own footer component and add it to the homepage.
Yes, so to summarize what we are doing here, so we are in our practice to create and develop the website with React components. And if you follow the instruction, so the instruction, I can quickly open it here. Yes, should be here. So if you go to the instruction, you should be able to see the setup instruction. You are required to install Git and Node.js first before you can actually run the website. And once you are done with installing, you should be able to go to your terminal, first clone the repo, And once you successfully cloning it, you can go to that folder by change directory cd, and then try npm install. npm install is to like download some dependencies and use npm start to start the website. And when you type where you are using npm start, you should, once is compiled successfully, you will see your website is in localhost 3000. So yeah, and if you need any help, feel free to ask us. So yeah, my website is running on localhost 3000 now, and now we are going to get a footer component. So it's footer component is under source, component, and footers. We have an index.js 5 years. So now we want to create a footer component. First thing, I think it's not required, but I usually like import React here. And then I would define a component. So we define a component by using functions. It's function footer. We have a component footer. Usually the param should be like props. We'll talk about props in a little bit, but for now we don't need props, so I will leave it there. So now we have a component footers, and let's return a super basic footers. For a component, we need to return a JSX element. So essentially like HTML element. So let's see, like this is a footer. It's not a perfect footer, but yeah. And if you want to use this footer on like all the page or all the component, you need to export it. So I will export it here. Export default. So this is to export this component. But you don't see anything here because we just like create a new component, but we don't use it in the website in like the main JSS tree. So we need to add this footer. So where we're gonna add it? We should add it under app.js. I think it should be your, I'm sorry, you should add it into your home page. It should be under page. And if you go to page and you go to the home page, you should see all the components there, and you can add your components at the bottom, I believe. Yeah, so here you see to do, and here you will add your footer components to your page, to your big component homepage. So let me quickly import footer component, import footer from, is some error because there's something that we will get there. So I just import a footer component, and then I will use the component inside the homepage. So just use as an HTML elements, and you will see your footer component there. So does anyone have any questions like how we create a component and use a component in your website? Yes. Oh yeah, so import, you will import the component name, and from the file you define it. And once you import it, you can use with something like this, the component name and slash in the bracket.
We're working on things so we can after year, but after year.
Okay, so I think like it's getting a little bit more complex. So we will let you like 5 minutes to like finish setting up if you haven't yet, and practice like creating the footer component or whatever component you want, and it is in the home page. Yeah, but in the meantime, if you have any questions, you are really welcome to ask us, and we will help you.
So, can you go to GitHub more quickly? Demo again, or install it? Okay, so because some people are having trouble with cloning the repo, I'll quickly give a demo on how to step by step how to clone everything and get everything set up.
You can close in my to see.
Okay, so okay, so make sure you're on the GitHub repo, which is the front-end workshop 2022. So here you'll see that we need to install Node.js and also Git. So to install Node.js, you just install the current Node.js. And then you just go through all the installations for that part. And after you finish installing Node.js, you'll have to install Git. So to install Git, you just go on the Git website. If you're on Mac, Windows, or Linux, you just click on each one, whichever one. So for example, we'll go to Windows, and you click on the installer here, and you just install and open this installer. On Mac, it might be slightly different. On Mac, you install Homebrew, which is here, and then on Mac, you'll want to go on this Homebrew website, and you'll want to copy this line of code. And on Mac, there's an application called Terminal, which you simply just copy paste this code, accept everything about the installation, and then you just simply install it. And then after that, you just run brew install git. And then that's GitHub installed for Mac. And then for Linux, you just follow the instructions there as well. And then after that, after you have Node.js and Git installed, you'll want to clone the repo. So that means you just follow this right here. Either you go into your terminal, and then basically you copy paste this line, which allows you to clone the GitHub repo into a folder of your choosing. And then after that, by the end of those steps, you should be able to have Node.js, then Git, and then the repo all installed onto your computer. And finally, what you'll need is also an IDE. That means you'll have to install either like something like VS Code or Dreamweaver, anything like that, just an IDE that can that you can write the code in. And then yeah, as you can see, and how you can start the actual you can actually run the website. You basically just run these 3 lines of code. You CD into the front-end workshop. So basically, in your command line, in your terminal, you go into the repositories folder, which is the front. Oh, I saw someone in the chat said that they forgot where they cloned the repo. Let me check that.
I think if once you use like git clone, you can list all the directory by using the ls to like list all it, and but I think you can find it from the file explorer. That's what I use.
Yeah, it might be in your root directory too, if it's if you're not sure where you cloned it or somewhere like that. So basically by the end of it, you'll want to CD into this folder. So basically just your terminal has to just have this repository. Yeah, or as Giang said in the chat, you can clone it again if you want. You can just clone it again anywhere, which also works. And then after that, in that same folder, you'll want to run npm install, which installs all the node modules. And then you'll want to run npm start, which then starts the website. It'll open it in a browser like Google Chrome or Edge or Firefox or anything like that. And by the end, it should be done. So does anyone have any questions about this? Okay. Okay, it seems good. So we'll continue with the next thing about components. Okay, so moving back to components, you can also create a component that has multiple properties that you pass into the component. So as we can see in the code here, we create something that stores a URL, a title, and a description. And this URL, title, and description, when it's run, it goes through a process called object destructuring. And this basically pulls each of these values of the properties object, the property objects being the URL, title, and description. And this represents them as URL, title, and description respectively. So when you run this card, it'll basically have the URL google.com, the title, which is an H1, which is a header. It will be React 2022, and then the paragraph, which is the description, as we can see in the value, that's welcome to the 2022 React workshop. And with Giang, she'll present how to add contact data to the contact page.
Yes, so we just learned about like how you use props and how you destructure it to render it in a component, and we will quickly make a demo like how you will use that in your website. So now let me quickly close everything. So we have in the root folder, in the source folder, you will see a file called constant.js. So constant.js contains contains all the like hard code data about your website, for example, the frameworks, the skills, tools, experience, so on and so forth. And we want to use it, and we don't want to like manually like create redundant components in your website, but rather we have a single variable, single object for your data, and we will render it using React components. First, we want to go to the contact page. So in the contact page, if you go to source page and then contact folder, you will see an index.js, the page for the contact. And now we want, we already defined for you some raw data, and we want you to use the raw data above to render the contact info component. So what is the contact info component? If you go to components, contact info, you should see your components there. So the contact infos have some props. That is what you need to, that is some values about the contact, which is the platform, profiling, and icon. And this data is available in the contact page. The contact page is this page. It's like the whole page, and and but your component, your contact info component doesn't have access to that data yet. So you need to like pass it to the contact info components. Before we are doing that, because now we didn't implement the nav bar and all like the navigation yet, so you don't see like anything here. I will recommend you to like go to the home page, source page home, and go to the files with the last to do, which is uncomment, and make the content available. And the IT setup, you need to pass some like props, but because we not implementing it now, so we just like hacking it a bit. The tab for the contact is with the ID6. So you may want to go to pass this as the value of ID6. And this should be your contacts. You can see like a gray space here is your contact page, and we will implement it now. So first, let us see what is. So your raw data contains the value platform, contains the value profiling, and contains the value icon. So how can you pass it to your components? So first, let us pass it to the component app props. First, let's use the component here. So we have the contact info. My VS will have like autocomplete. So if I type the component name, it will auto like import it. But this contact info component now only has like a raw component. It doesn't have like any props, any like data for it. Yeah, as you can see, it's kind of ugly right now. So we need to like pass the value there. We will pass exactly what is provided in the raw data. So platform. So the props value platform will have the value equal to the raw data platform. Data.platform. This is one way you can pass like you can pass each single value in this object. But if you, for example, if you have like multiple properties or multiple key in this object, it can be like tedious if you like could keep doing one by one property. So what we can do is we can pass the whole object to the child component. So let me actually pass this whole object to the contact info, and the contact info had to figure it out how to render it. So I just pass the data as the prop data to the contact info, and when I to the contact info, we should be able to get the data props as. So in the props, in whatever is passing to this child component, I only get the value data, because the contact, we can pass multiple props to this contact info components, but we only need data. So I just only like using data here. And let's actually use the data value. So this should be your data dot. I think this should be the icon. Yes. Dot icon. Oops. It's keep complaining. I need to actually close. Yes. As you can see here, I just rendered the icon, whatever is passed to the props. And when I use the value of the data, the icon to the source of the image, you can see the hackering image here. It's done by using the data props that it passed to this component and get the icon key, icon properties. Similarly, the answer, we want to do the data.platform to get, oh, my computer is running out of battery. So. Thank you. Oh yeah, we are back. So I here is data.platform to yes.
For some reason now it's like a blank.
And here, similarly, we have some. So remember from the raw data, we have the platform, the profiling, and the icon available to us. So that is what we can use for the data. And here, let me actually use data dot. Yeah, you will see the platform here we define as the Hacker Earth, and here you can find the Hacker Earth name actually rendered in this component. And yeah, that is essentially how we use like props and use this in a component, and you can complete the rest of the to-dos by your own. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us.
How you like okay.
Yeah, it's already done.
I don't think this.
Like, we can just
Okay, so this is oh.
One of the new tech associates.
What's your name?
I'm Sean. Sam from Sean.
He's your president and our tech lead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just came to support. Yeah.
Yes. A second.
Yeah, I'm just came disappointed.
Yeah,
I
you
don't,
can ask the like leads, the president and
I don't do tech. I don't do web dev.
it's okay. They're doing something else.
Yeah,
You can-
I just come here.
yeah.
You know, I mean, it's Really? Wow. Yeah, of course. That's like a lot. I just came with these. Yeah, all right.
Short on time. I think what we should do is that we should probably cover all of this and then go through the practice after. Just so we cover, just so we cover these, but and then we go through them.
Yeah, so now we are going back to like the React and JavaScript, React. And in the meantime, if you do the practice and if you have any problems, feel free to ask us. We are really happy to help. Now let us go to the dynamic rendering data. It's what we're already doing. So for the dynamic rendering, you are render the component based on the data. That is what we are doing here. So normally in the HTML, you are having like h1 tag and then content like hello world or something. But now you want to like have the context as a variable. So you can like change hello world to like something like hi world or something else. So using it as a variable is way more convenient, and we can like change it later with the backend side or something else you want to do. With that, in this example, we have an array of users which contains all the user data like login and like their name and their avatar, and we are using maps. We are seeing first. Let me explain like what this code do. So this user first to check if this array exists or not, like it is defined or not, because it like in JavaScript, if it's undefined, it will like rendering you nothing, but it will not like break your website or something. So we need to like check if it's defined first. And if it's defined, we will be using the map function. The map function is kind of like a unique way in JavaScript where you looping through each element in the array and then return something. So for each element in the user array, we have the element user, the index, and then we return the avatar component. Therefore, and we are using this as an example because we don't want to like for each user we have like a line of avatar. So if we have 10 users, we have like 10 lines of avatar component. We don't want to do that. So we just like reuse it with the user array and rendering it using the user variables. You can see more practice in the to-do bit because we are running out of time, so we are not like describing it in details. Oops. And now we are going to hooks, React hooks. React is a powerful way to fetch the data and keeping the state of the data. For example, if you switch to live mode from dark mode to live mode, so you can stay, you can like dynamically change between live mode and dark mode, for example. That's one example of using state. And in React, you can use state for persisting data, use effect to rendering based on dependencies. For example, if the data is a backend return you something, you want to update, re-render the website after the backend send you something. Use reference can be used if you want the data to persist, even if you like refresh the page multiple times. And finally, use context is for global state. If you're interested, you can like look it up, and yeah, it's a very powerful way for it to using React in a complex website. On example here, we are using use state to get the very simple count button. So the state only available in a single component. It means if you're not passing it to the child component will not have access to it. So it's only available in a single component, and it will stay there until you click like refresh, of course. And in React we use like use state import from React, and the count is a state, and set count is to like set the state. And when you like click on the button, you want to like update the state to like one more. So if you like click 5 times, it will like be 5. Yes, so I think we still have like a little bit of time, so we can go to the coding. But because we have many to-dos in this website, is for you to practice React and to like fill out your personal website as you wish. Yeah, and feel free to like use it for your personal use or other use as you wish. So let us go to practices. Actually, now we want to actually implement the content bit. Before we just hacking it with the tab ID, but now we want to like use this with multiple tabs. So let me do it right now. And we will use the dynamic rendering and state here. So you can see here, we use active tab at the state to like dynamically, if a person click skills, is tab 0, tab 1, tab 2, but we want it to persist. We don't want to like, if it is tab 0, if student tab 1, it need to like update to 1, for example. So what we want to do here first is hard coding the state, but we want to like get it as an actual state. So we will follow this what is available in the example. So let me define a state. Yeah. There will be a square bracket and the state name, which is active tab, and then a set state function. Let me get it as set active tab, and then use state. There is auto import from the VS Code. So, but you can import it from React. Once you import it and it's there, you can inside this bracket you can pass a default state. So by default, I want it to be at tab 0, which is the first tab. And now I actually want it to I actually want to update the state whenever we click on the navigation tab. So I will set the state of the active tab to be the index, because that is what the ID should look like. String. Actually, I will use a string template here. And now we want to pass this to the content. So the content, whenever we click on the navigation bar, it should look for the correct page. So yeah, that is, and if you click this, by default it is a skill, but if you click on experience, this should be another page for experience, for contact, for GitHub project, and so on. So that is how you use state to to sum up. I just define a state to define what is the tab that the user are viewing as an active tab state. And I add a function. So whenever I click on the tab, it should set the state to the correct tab. And I pass, so the active tab contains the ID of the tab that I want to render, and I just pass it to the content. So the content pane here can use the active tab to render the correct page corresponding to the tab. Yeah, so I think we can still have like a little bit of time. You are feel free to complete the rest of the to-do and the rest of the website. And if you have any question, again, feel free to ask us, and we will wrap up at 7.
Okay, oh, wait, did we already finish?
I think I will use any forms and we will like complete as like finish everything like that.
Okay.
But I think the presentation
They had seen issues, so they can figure out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I'll sit around.
Okay, so we'll be
Excuse me, everyone. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, so we'll be wrapping up this workshop now. The slides will be posted and here are all the resources if you want to study on by yourself too. There's the official React website is pretty good to learn React. To quickly refresh on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can go to W3 Schools and check out their pages there. To learn about UI UX, there's a UX certificate from Google that you can look at, or just any design course too can really help your design sense to help build your UI UX skills. And in general, thank you for coming to the workshop, and I hope everyone had a good time today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And yeah, if you want like to grab a stickers or snack, yeah, feel free to do so. Thank you. And we will have the community gathering starting at 7:10.
Oh, also, yeah, we'll update the repo in a few days or in a week or so with the completed starter code. I mean, with the completed code, so everything will be mostly done. But that'll you'll get an email later, but that'll be done in a few days to a week. Thank you.